Listen closely, because what you think you know is about to be flipped upside down. Tonight's story isn't just another recycled reality TV rumor, it's a slow-burning explosion that's been hiding in plain sight. When K. Michelle finally broke her silence, fans were shocked, insiders panicked, and a long-standing narrative began to crack. The Jasmine Kirk Rasheeda saga? According to whispers now roaring across social media, it was never the full truth, just the version everyone was allowed to see. For years, viewers thought they had it all figured out. Jasmine was painted as the disruptor. Kirk was the man caught in the middle. Rasheeda was the loyal wife holding her family together while the world judged from the outside. But behind closed doors, emotions ran high, secrets piled up, and alliances shifted in ways no camera ever captured. And now, with one unexpected voice stepping forward, the family, and the fandom, was left divided. It started with a late-night message. Not a press release, not a reunion teaser, just a few carefully chosen words that sent shockwaves through fan pages and group chats. K. Michelle hinted that what unfolded on screen was edited truth at best, and deliberate misdirection at worst. Within minutes, fans were digging, rewatching old episodes, and connecting dots they swear were always there. How did we miss this? Became the question of the hour. Sources claim Jasmine had her own story she was pressured to soften. Kirk, they say, wasn't just defensive, he was desperate. And Rasheeda? The calm exterior may have been masking a storm of private confrontations, tear-filled nights, and choices no one should have to make under a spotlight. Friends reportedly took sides. Family members stopped speaking. Even longtime fans began questioning whether loyalty had been misplaced. Then came the alleged confrontation, the one cameras never aired. Voices raised, accusations flying, a truth spoken that allegedly changed everything. If even half of what insiders are claiming is real, the emotional fallout explains years of tension that never quite made sense. And K. Michelle? She's positioned herself as the truth teller with nothing left to lose, daring anyone involved to challenge her version. So buckle up, because what you're about to hear isn't the story you remember, it's the story you were never meant to hear. And once you do, you may never watch the Jasmine Kirk Rasheeda drama the same way again. The night everything shifted didn't start with cameras or lights or a reunion stage. It started in a quiet room, with a phone buzzing non-stop and a voice message that was never meant to be heard outside a tight inner circle. When K. Michelle spoke, it wasn't with her usual polished tone. It was raw, sharp, and trembling with frustration, like someone who had been holding their breath for years and finally exhaled. She didn't name names at first. She didn't have to. Anyone who had lived through the mess knew exactly who she was talking about. Fans are shocked not because drama exists, but because of how long this version of the truth may have been buried. According to people close to the situation, K. Michelle had been warning producers and cast members for years that the Jasmine Kirk Rasheeda situation was never as simple as it was portrayed. On screen, the storyline felt clear-cut, almost scripted. Off-screen, emotions ran high and conversations turned dark, confusing, and deeply personal. When K. Michelle finally decided to speak, it wasn't about stirring chaos. It was about clearing her own conscience. She allegedly said she was tired of watching one person be dragged while others walked away untouched, smiling for cameras while damage spread quietly behind them. The moment her words started circulating, phones lit up across Atlanta. Group chats reignited, old alliances were tested, people who hadn't spoken in years suddenly had a reason to reach out again, not to reconcile, but to protect themselves. Because what K. Michelle hinted at was bigger than one affair or one betrayal. It suggested that the entire narrative had been carefully shaped, not to tell the truth, but to control it. Insiders claim that when Jasmine Washington first entered the picture, she wasn't looking to be a villain. She was young, emotional, and according to friends, already overwhelmed by promises that were never meant to be kept. Behind closed doors, she allegedly told people she felt manipulated, not just by Kirk, but by the system around him. She reportedly believed that telling her full story would cost her everything, so she chose silence, thinking it would protect her. Instead, silence became a weapon used against her. Meanwhile, Kirk Frost was navigating two worlds at once. Publicly, he played the role of the man trying to fix his mistakes. Privately, sources say he was scrambling to contain fallout that threatened more than his marriage. Business relationships, brand deals, friendships built over decades all hung in the balance. Every choice he made, every word he spoke, seemed calculated not just for emotional survival, but for reputation management. Friends recall heated arguments where Kirk insisted that if certain truths came out, everything would collapse. And then there was Rasheeda, the woman at the center of it all, yet often the quietest voice in the room. Fans saw strength, poise, and resilience. What they didn't see were the nights she allegedly spent questioning everyone around her, including those she trusted most. Sources say Rasheeda knew pieces of the truth long before the audience did, but she was trapped between protecting her family and exposing a reality that would change how everyone saw them forever. Emotions ran high in private conversations where tears flowed freely and accusations were met with silence rather than denial. K. Michelle, watching all of this unfold from the sidelines, reportedly grew increasingly uncomfortable. She had her own history with being misunderstood and misrepresented, and seeing it happen again triggered something deep. Friends say she tried to intervene quietly at first, pulling people aside, urging honesty, warning that lies have a way of resurfacing. But every attempt was met with resistance. She was told to stay in her lane, to mind her business, to remember how this industry works. That only fueled her anger. One insider claims there was a private meeting, never filmed, where tensions exploded. Voices were raised, fingers were pointed. Jasmine allegedly broke down, admitting that she felt used and discarded. Kirk, according to those present, became defensive, insisting that everything had gone too far to turn back now. Rasheeda reportedly sat in silence for most of it, her expression unreadable, until she finally spoke and asked a single question that stopped the room cold. If this comes out, who are we really protecting? No one answered. After that night, relationships shifted. Some people stopped returning calls. Others began leaking selective information to bloggers, shaping the narrative before someone else could. Fans noticed the change before they understood it. Interactions felt forced. Energy felt tense. Smiles didn't reach eyes anymore. The family was left divided, not just emotionally, but strategically. Every move became about damage control. K. Michelle's frustration reached a breaking point when she realized that Jasmine was being blamed publicly while others were quietly forgiven. She allegedly told a friend that watching the internet tear a woman apart while knowing the full context felt unbearable. She began hinting online, dropping vague comments that fans brushed off at first. But when patterns emerged, when old clips resurfaced and timelines didn't add up, curiosity turned into suspicion. The night she finally spoke more openly, it wasn't planned. She was emotional, tired, and fed up. According to those who heard it live, her voice shook as she said that the truth had been twisted to protect certain images. She didn't spell everything out, but she didn't need to. The implication was enough. Fans are shocked because suddenly, the pieces fit together in a way they never had before. As word spread, reactions poured in. Some fans defended Rasheeda fiercely, arguing that no matter what, she was the one hurt most. Others questioned Kirk's accountability, asking why consequences always seemed temporary for him. Jasmine, once dismissed, began receiving messages of support from people who admitted they might have judged too quickly. The comment sections turned into battlegrounds of loyalty and doubt. Behind the scenes, panic reportedly set in. Calls were made, meetings were scheduled. People who had been confident in their silence suddenly feared exposure. Because if K. Michelle decided to go all the way, to name names and detail conversations, there would be no turning back. This wasn't just about drama anymore. It was about rewriting history. And that's where everything paused, right at the edge of something bigger. Because once one person dares to challenge the story everyone accepted, it forces everyone else to choose. Stay quiet and hope it passes, or speak up and risk everything. The tension didn't disappear after that night. It thickened, hanging over every interaction, every public appearance, every smile for the cameras. And from that moment on, nothing in this story moved forward without the weight of what had finally been said out loud. The silence after that night didn't mean peace. It meant fear, the kind that settles in slowly and makes every phone notification feel like a threat. After K. Michelle's words began circulating, nothing was handled casually anymore. Every conversation felt rehearsed. Every public move felt like it had been approved by someone behind the scenes. Insiders say the energy shifted immediately, like everyone involved suddenly realized the story they thought was buried was breathing again. Jasmine Washington felt it first. According to people close to her, she woke up to hundreds of messages she didn't know how to process. Some were apologies. Some were demands. Some were outright accusations from fans who wanted her to confirm what K. Michelle had implied. Jasmine reportedly locked herself in her apartment for 2 days, ignoring calls from producers and even friends. Emotions ran high as she struggled with the same question she had been asking herself for years. Should I finally tell everything or keep protecting people who never protected me? Sources say Jasmine reached out privately to K. Michelle late one night, her voice breaking as she asked why now. K. Michelle allegedly responded without hesitation. Because they were never going to tell it. Because you were always going to be the fall guy. Because I'm tired of watching that happen. That exchange, according to insiders, marked the first time Jasmine felt seen instead of silenced. Meanwhile, Kirk Frost was not taking the situation lightly. Those close to him claim he went into full control mode. Calls were made to lawyers, publicists, and longtime friends. Not to apologize, but to prepare. Kirk allegedly insisted that the situation was being blown out of proportion and that K. Michelle was exaggerating out of personal resentment. But behind closed doors, his tone reportedly shifted. He knew exactly which conversations he didn't want revisited and which timelines he hoped fans would never piece together. Rasheeda, on the other hand, reacted differently. Instead of jumping into defense mode, she pulled away. Friends noticed she stopped sharing details of her personal life altogether. She kept her responses measured, her expressions calm, but those closest to her say the pressure was crushing. She allegedly confided to a trusted friend that the hardest part wasn't the betrayal anymore, it was the feeling of being trapped in a story she no longer controlled. One insider claims Rasheeda confronted Kirk privately after hearing what K. Michelle had said. Not with yelling, but with quiet precision. She reportedly asked him if there was anything else she didn't know, anything that would blindside her later. Kirk, according to the source, denied it. But the hesitation before his answer said more than the words themselves. That moment planted a seed of doubt that never left. As fans dissected every clip and interview, old footage resurfaced that suddenly looked different. Moments once dismissed as awkward now felt intentional. Pauses in conversation, side glances, phrases that didn't quite add up. Fans are shocked by how much they believe they missed the first time around. Comment sections filled with theories, timelines, and speculation that only added fuel to the fire. K. Michelle didn't backtrack. Instead, she doubled down in subtle ways. Liking comments, reposting cryptic messages, going live briefly only to log off without explanation. Insiders say she was torn between saying everything and protecting herself from backlash. She knew once she crossed a certain line, there would be no repairing relationships. But she also knew silence would make her complicit in a lie she could no longer tolerate. The pressure began to affect everyone differently. Jasmine reportedly lost sleep, replaying old conversations in her head and questioning her own choices. Kirk became increasingly defensive in public, snapping at questions and brushing off concerns with forced confidence. Rasheeda withdrew emotionally, focusing on work and family while avoiding direct confrontation in public spaces. The family was left divided not just between each other, but within themselves. Then came the rumor that changed everything. A blogger claimed there was unaired footage from years ago that contradicted the official narrative entirely. Footage that allegedly showed Jasmine being promised protection and discretion in exchange for silence. Footage that, if released, would shift public sympathy overnight. No one confirmed its existence, but no one denied it either. That uncertainty alone was enough to send shockwaves through the fanbase. Kirk's camp reportedly scrambled to discredit the claim, calling it fake and attention-seeking. Jasmine's friends hinted that the truth was more complicated. Rasheeda remained silent, which fans interpreted in every possible way. Some saw strength, others saw confirmation. Emotions ran high as speculation blurred into belief. Behind the scenes, relationships continued to fracture. People who once stood united began distancing themselves. Invitations went unanswered, meetings were postponed indefinitely. Everyone seemed to be waiting for someone else to make the next move, to say the thing that couldn't be unsaid. K. Michelle, watching the chaos unfold, allegedly told a confidant that this was exactly what she expected. Not because she wanted destruction, but because lies rarely collapse quietly. They implode, and as the pressure mounted, it became clear that this story was no longer about one mistake or one affair. It was about years of choices, silence, and image protection coming face to face with a truth that refused to stay hidden. And just when it seemed like the tension couldn't stretch any further, a private message surfaced, allegedly sent years ago, containing words that directly contradicted everything the public had been told. No one knew who leaked it. No one knew who it would hurt the most. But everyone involved knew one thing for sure. Once that message entered the conversation, there would be no way to control where the story went next. The message didn't stay private for long. Within hours of its surfacing, screenshots were circulating in corners of the internet where reality TV fans live and breathe. No one knew who leaked it, but everyone recognized the tone. It wasn't angry. It wasn't emotional. It was calculated. The words suggested planning, reassurance, and promises that were never meant to be kept. Fans are shocked because the message directly contradicted the version of events they had defended for years. Jasmine Washington reportedly saw the screenshot at the same time as everyone else. Sources say she froze, staring at her phone as if it might disappear if she looked away long enough. That message was something she remembered vividly, not because it comforted her, but because it trapped her. Friends recall her saying that seeing it again felt like being pulled back into a moment she had tried to forget. Emotions ran high as she realized that the truth was no longer something she controlled. K. Michelle didn't comment immediately, but people close to her say she knew exactly what it was the moment it leaked. She allegedly told someone that once receipts start talking, people stop lying comfortably. Her calm reaction only added to the speculation. Fans began to believe she knew far more than she had said so far, and that what she had shared was only the beginning. Kirk Frost's response was immediate and defensive. Insiders say he called an emergency meeting with his team, insisting that the message was being taken out of context. He reportedly argued that words can be interpreted 100 different ways and that this was just another attempt to make him look worse than he already had. But those who know him well noticed something different this time. Fear, not of public backlash, but of what might come next. Rasheeda, meanwhile, was forced into an impossible position. Friends say she recognized the message instantly, even before she admitted it out loud. According to one source, she confronted Kirk again, holding her phone between them and asking him to explain it without excuses. The room reportedly went silent. Kirk's answer didn't satisfy her, not because it was a lie, but because it was incomplete. And for Rasheeda, half-truths hurt almost as much as betrayals. The fanbase erupted. Timelines were reconstructed in real time. People compared dates, episodes, interviews, and social media posts. Things that once seemed coincidental now looked deliberate. Fans are shocked at how much effort they had put into defending a storyline that suddenly felt fragile. Emotions ran high as loyalty turned into suspicion. Jasmine, feeling the pressure closing in, reportedly reached her breaking point. Sources say she finally agreed to speak privately with someone she trusted, laying out her version of events in painful detail. She admitted that she had been promised protection, discretion, and support that never materialized. She said she was encouraged to play along with a narrative that painted her as reckless rather than hurt. According to those who heard her story, she wasn't seeking sympathy anymore. She just wanted the truth to exist somewhere. K. Michelle supported her quietly. Not with posts or statements, but with conversations. Insiders say she reminded Jasmine that silence doesn't always equal dignity, and that sometimes survival looks like telling the truth even when your voice shakes. That support reportedly gave Jasmine the courage to stop running from her own story. Kirk, sensing the shift, attempted to regain control. He allegedly reached out to Jasmine directly for the first time in years. The call, according to sources, did not go well. Jasmine reportedly accused him of abandoning her when things got hard and only resurfacing now to save himself. Kirk denied it, insisting he was trying to fix things. But the damage was already done. Trust, once fractured, rarely heals cleanly. Rasheeda watched all of this unfold with growing clarity. Friends say something changed in her demeanor. She stopped defending explanations that didn't make sense. She stopped smoothing over rough edges for the sake of appearances. Instead, she began asking questions publicly, subtly but pointedly. Questions that forced Kirk to respond rather than deflect. The family was left divided not just emotionally, but publicly. Fans noticed. They always do. Comments flooded in, praising Rasheeda for her strength while questioning how much she had been expected to endure quietly. Others argued that she was complicit by staying silent for so long. The debate became less about right and wrong and more about survival in an industry that rewards image over honesty. The pressure began to crack friendships as well. People who had once defended Kirk distanced themselves. Others reached out to Jasmine privately, apologizing for judgments they had made based on incomplete information. Emotions ran high as alliances shifted and old loyalties dissolved. Then came another twist. A former associate hinted at an even deeper layer, suggesting that producers had actively shaped the narrative to protect certain cast members. Nothing was confirmed, but the implication alone was explosive. Fans are shocked by the possibility that what they watched wasn't just edited, but engineered. K. Michelle, hearing this, reportedly laughed bitterly. Not because it surprised her, but because it validated everything she had been trying to say. She allegedly told a friend that reality TV doesn't show reality, it sells it. And sometimes, the price is someone else's truth. As tension mounted, everyone involved seemed to retreat into themselves. Jasmine prepared for the possibility of finally speaking publicly. Kirk braced for questions he couldn't easily dodge. Rasheeda stood at a crossroads between protecting her family and protecting herself. The story had reached a point where no outcome felt clean. And just as people thought the worst had already surfaced, a rumor began circulating about a recorded conversation, one that allegedly captured a moment of honesty never meant for the public. No one knew who had it. No one knew if it would ever be released. But its existence alone was enough to keep everyone on edge. Because if that recording came out, it wouldn't just change opinions. It would rewrite the entire story yet again. The rumor about the recording refused to die, and with every hour that passed, it grew heavier, louder, more believable. People close to the situation said the energy shifted from denial to anticipation. Not excitement, not relief, but the kind of tension that comes when everyone knows something is coming and no one knows how bad it will be. Fans are shocked at how quickly the conversation moved from speculation to certainty. It wasn't a matter of if anymore. It was when. Jasmine Washington tried to prepare herself. Those closest to her say she spent long nights replaying memories she had buried, trying to remember exact words, exact tones, exact moments. She knew if a recording existed, it would drag everything back into the open whether she was ready or not. Emotions ran high as she questioned her own strength, wondering if she could survive the internet tearing her apart all over again, this time with new information fueling the fire. K. Michelle stayed unusually quiet during this period, which only intensified the curiosity. People who know her say silence from her is never accidental. It's strategic. She was allegedly weighing the cost of continuing to speak against the cost of stopping now. According to one insider, she said something that stuck with everyone who heard it. If the truth comes out without me, at least I tried. If it doesn't, I'll know why. That mindset kept her steady while chaos unfolded around her. Kirk Frost felt the pressure closing in from all sides. Sources claim his confidence began to crack behind closed doors. Meetings with his team grew tense, with arguments breaking out over what strategy to take. Deny everything and wait it out, or get ahead of the story and admit to pieces before they were exposed. Kirk reportedly hated both options. Admitting meant losing control. Denying meant risking total collapse if the recording surfaced. Rasheeda watched Kirk struggle in ways she hadn't seen before. Friends say she became more observant, less reactive. Instead of arguing, she listened. Instead of defending, she waited. That shift didn't go unnoticed. People around her began to realize she was processing more than she was sharing. Emotions ran high as she weighed her loyalty against her self-respect, a balance she had been forced to maintain for far too long. The fan reaction intensified when a well-known blogger hinted that they had heard the recording and described it as devastating. Not explosive, not dramatic, but calm and matter-of-fact, which somehow made it worse. According to the blogger, the voices on the recording sounded comfortable, familiar, like two people who believed they were safe from consequences. Fans are shocked because that description shattered the idea that everything had been a mistake born of chaos. It suggested intention. Jasmine reportedly broke down after reading that description. Sources say she cried not because she was afraid, but because she felt validated in a painful way. She had always said the situation wasn't impulsive, that it involved planning and reassurance. Hearing someone else confirm that possibility reopened wounds she thought had scarred over. Emotions ran high as she struggled between wanting the recording out and fearing what it would do to everyone involved, including herself. K. Michelle reached out to her again during this time, reminding her that no matter what happened, she wasn't alone anymore. That support mattered more than public opinion. Insiders say those conversations were grounding for Jasmine, helping her remember that her worth wasn't defined by a storyline someone else wrote. Kirk's public appearances during this period felt strained. Fans noticed it immediately. His body language changed. His tone sharpened. He avoided certain questions entirely. People who had defended him for years began to waver. Comment sections filled with uncertainty instead of loyalty. The narrative was slipping, and everyone could feel it. Rasheeda's silence became its own statement. She posted about work, about family, about strength, but never addressed the rumors directly. Fans are shocked at how powerful that silence felt. Some interpreted it as patience. Others as preparation. Either way, it was clear she was no longer willing to perform reassurance for anyone else's comfort. Behind the scenes, the family was left divided in ways cameras could never fully capture. Conversations were shorter. Trust was thinner. The idea of unity felt fragile, like something that could shatter with one wrong sentence. Insiders say Rasheeda had begun asking herself a hard question. If the truth finally comes out, who do I become after? The rumored recording continued to loom, and with it came another twist. A source claimed there wasn't just one recording, but multiple conversations, spread across months, not days. If true, it would completely dismantle the idea that everything happened in a brief lapse of judgment. Fans are shocked at the possibility that the situation was ongoing, calculated, and protected by silence on all sides. K. Michelle allegedly heard this and shook her head, saying, "This is why I spoke up." According to a confidant, she felt a mix of anger and relief. Anger that the truth had been hidden so effectively. Relief that her instincts had been right all along. Jasmine prepared herself mentally for the worst. She began writing things down, not for the public but for herself. A way to hold on to her own truth no matter how the narrative shifted again. Friends say she was done being reactive. If the recording came out, she wanted to be ready to stand in her truth instead of running from it. Kirk, sensing the walls closing in, reportedly tried one last time to stabilize the situation. He reached out to Rasheeda with promises of transparency, of honesty, of no more surprises. Rasheeda listened, but according to those close to her, she didn't respond the way she used to. She didn't reassure him. She didn't argue. She simply said she needed time. And that uncertainty terrified him more than anger ever could. Fans felt it too. The energy was different. The suspense heavier. Everyone seemed to be holding their breath, waiting for the next drop. Emotions ran high across social media as theories turned darker and sympathy shifted unpredictably. And as the pressure reached its peak, a new whisper began circulating. Someone, somewhere, was considering releasing the recording not to a blog, not to a show, but directly to the public. Unedited, unprotected. If that happened, there would be no narrative control left. No strategic framing. Just raw truth. No one knew if it would happen. No one knew when. But everyone involved knew one thing for certain. Once that line was crossed, there would be no returning to the version of the story they had lived with for years. Everything would change again, and this time, there would be no way to pretend otherwise. Now that you've heard everything up to this point, the real question is this. What do you believe? Because this story is no longer just about one secret, one betrayal, or one voice finally speaking up. It's about how narratives are built, how silence is rewarded, and how truth gets buried when it becomes inconvenient. You've watched the layers peel back, you've felt the tension rise, and you've seen how quickly public opinion can shift when even a fraction of the real story starts to surface. Fans are shocked because nothing feels as clear as it once did. Every moment from the past now feels heavier, loaded with meaning that was never explained. Emotions ran high not just for the people involved, but for you as a viewer who invested time, loyalty, and belief into a story that may never have been whole. And that's what makes this hit differently. Because once doubt enters the conversation, it never really leaves. You've seen how one voice was enough to shake an entire narrative. How a single leak changed years of perception. How silence spoke louder than statements ever could. And now you're left sitting with unanswered questions. What else hasn't come out yet? Who knew more than they admitted? And if the final truth ever does come out, who will it hurt the most? The family was left divided, but so was the audience. Some of you feel sympathy. Some of you feel anger. Some of you feel conflicted because you can see every side and still don't know where you stand. And that's okay, because stories like this aren't meant to be simple. They're meant to make you think, to question, to rewatch moments with new eyes and ask yourself why certain things never quite added up. This isn't the end of the story. It's just the point where the mask started slipping. What happens next depends on who decides to speak, who decides to stay silent, and who decides they've had enough of protecting an image that no longer protects them back. And if that rumored recording ever sees the light of day, everything you think you know could change all over again. Now it's your turn. Do you think the truth has already been revealed, or do you believe there's still something bigger waiting to come out? Do you feel differently about the people involved now that you've heard what might have been happening behind closed doors? Or do you think this is just another example of reality TV blurring lines until no one remembers where reality actually started? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't hold back. This is one of those stories where every opinion matters, because every perspective adds another layer to the conversation. If you felt the tension, if you felt the shock, if this story made you rethink everything you thought you knew, make sure you hit that like button so more people can join the discussion. And if you don't want to miss what happens next, because let's be real, this story is far from over, make sure you subscribe right now. Turn on notifications so you're the first to know when the next chapter drops. Because when the next piece of this puzzle comes out, you're going to want to be here for it. Stay tuned, stay questioning, and remember, sometimes the loudest truths are the ones that were hidden inside.